Sage Steele has filed a lawsuit against ESPN alleging that they punished her for what she said on Jay Cutler's podcast in September of last year. She said a couple of different things, but the one that got the most attention, I would say, was she said she didn't agree with Disney and ESPN's COVID vaccine mandate. And I 100% agree with her. I don't think it was right that any employer out there, anywhere, was able to mandate the COVID shot, because we've got a lot of people who got the COVID shot that are still getting and spreading COVID. In fact, it doesn't appear that getting the COVID shot does anything at all to stop the spread of COVID. It may keep you from getting as sick as you otherwise would have gotten if you are elderly and were likely to become sick if you particularly ill. And again, I told my parents to get the COVID shot. I told them to get the booster. I think it's smart if you're a senior citizen over 75 years old, for sure. If you are otherwise unhealthy or have substantial health risks, all those things make sense. But the idea that we made young, healthy people get the COVID shot in order to keep their jobs is 100% wrong. So I agree with everything Sage Steele said on Jay Cutler's podcast relating to COVID. She says she was punished by ESPN for those comments. And so she is suing under, in particular, a Connecticut state law which bans the punishment of employees for sharing their opinions on things outside of work. And I think this is significant. Sage Steele should have the right to share any political opinion that she has outside of work. She didn't go on, unlike some of her coworkers at ESPN, and share political opinions like happened at ESPN during the women's NCAA tournament when on air they had employees protesting the parental rights bill in Florida. On air. Not in their private life, not on their social media accounts. To me, that is radical and revolutionary compared to what Sage Steele said. And I have advocated for this for a long time. People say, oh, you Colin Kaepernick. Well, look, Colin Kaepernick was in uniform at work. If Sage Steele had started off ESPN SportsCenter by saying, hey, tonight is the NFL draft, and also I think COVID vaccine mandates make no sense whether they are being implemented by Disney, my employer, or your employers out there, and now let me tell you why, then I would say, okay, you know what? I can understand why there might be a punishment levied. But if you're not in uniform at work, like Kaepernick was, you should have the right to have any opinion that you want. The difference is, in uniform at work, you don't have the right to share whatever your opinions are, and you certainly don't have the right, in my opinion, to use the existing infrastructure of ESPN to go on and make a political argument that has nothing to do necessarily with the world of sports. Now, you can argue that Sage Steele's opinion does have a lot to do with the world of sports, because she's standing up against vaccine mandates, not just for ESPN, but also, in theory, for all the sports leagues, where, by the way, players, by and large, were not forced to get the COVID shot, but a lot of other team employees were. So I support Sage Steele's lawsuit. I support anyone having the right to make their own comments. And I would just point out that Disney has painted itself into a really difficult corner here in relation to her lawsuit. They supposedly default suspended her and took her away from being able to host a lot of events that she otherwise would have done. And they've allowed political comments to be made on ESPN airwaves. Remember, just last month, they interrupted the NCAA women's basketball tournament to criticize the parental rights bill in Florida that they falsely labeled "Don't Say Gay." So if ESPN is allowing employees with no consequences to use their actual programming on-air channels to make statements about Florida's parental rights bill, this is a state bill, it's not even a national bill, how in the world can they punish Sage Steele for going on Jay Cutler's podcast out of work at the time and giving her opinion on COVID vaccine mandates. I frankly don't understand how it can lead to a punishment. So I support Sage Steele in her lawsuit and in what might be a protracted legal battle with ESPN over what has become, I think, an integral battle in the world of sports media, which is, why are people who are super left-wing protected from any left-wing opinions that they want to share? But if you have an opinion that the other 80% or 90% of sports fans might have, you're not allowed to share it. Sage Steele is fighting that battle. Good for her. I know there are a lot of people at ESPN who are supportive of her fighting that battle.